But the seat had moved. It wasn't under him anymore. It was under the mic, and the mic was in my hands. After the call, the room didn't erupt. There was no applause, no great job, no group hug, just the quiet re-entry of oxygen, like the building had been holding its breath. Grant stayed in his chair for a beat too long. The overhead lights buzzed. The HVAC exhaled recycled air. The lemon cleaner smell lingered on the table like a cheap cologne. I gathered my things slowly, not to be dramatic, to be deliberate. My laptop, my legal pad, the leather folder with the renewal packet that everyone pretended was simple until it tried to bite them. Grant finally stood up. He tried to say something. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His face did that flicker people get when their self-image and reality collide. I think we should debrief, he managed. Sure, I said, not warm, not cold, just factual. I walked back to my desk and did the thing that actually ends deals. I sent the follow-up, subject line, Global Renewal Sync Actions and Decisions, bullets, owners, deadlines, a clean summary of what the international team had agreed to, in writing, with no room for Grant to interpret it later. I CC'd Grant because I'm not petty. I CC'd his boss because I'm not stupid. The response came fast. London. Thank you. Kayla, please proceed. Frankfurt Council. Confirmed. Awaiting red line from your side. Singapore. Appreciate the clarity. We will coordinate implementation with you directly. Directly. That word hit harder than any insult, because it wasn't emotional. It wasn't personal. It was operational truth. They had rooted around him. At 11:12. My calendar pinged. Grant had scheduled a debrief meeting for 11:30. It disappeared 3 minutes later. Not declined. Deleted. At 11:19. My phone buzzed. A call from legal. Did you see the follow-up? They asked, voice low. They basically named you as key. I saw. I said. At 11:23. HR appeared at my desk like a ghost that had just learned how to knock. Hey, she said softly to softly. Do you have a minute later? Just to check in? Her eyes were on my face, but her body was angled toward Grant's office down the hall. She wasn't checking in for me. She was preparing to document something for him. Sure, I said. Email me. She blinked, surprised I didn't offer comfort. Then she left. At noon. The elevator doors opened and Grant walked out with his laptop bag in his hand. Not a dramatic march. Not a security escort. Nothing that would feed office gossip in a satisfying way. Just subtle displacement. His badge beeped once at the turnstile, then it beeped again, a sharper tone, the kind of tone that says, access denied. He tried again, laughing under his breath like it was a glitch. Beep denied. His cheeks flushed. His jaw tightened. He looked around to see if anyone had noticed. Everyone had noticed. No one moved. That's the part people don't understand about corporate power. It's not loud. It's not cinematic. It's silent doors that don't open for you anymore. Grant pulled out his phone and made a call, pacing near the lobby like he was negotiating with a machine. Then a building manager walked over. Polite, apologetic, and utterly uninterested. I'm sorry, the manager said. Looks like your access needs to be reactivated by facilities. Grant stared at him, and for a second, he looked exactly like the people he used to mock, small, confused, waiting for someone to translate the rules. He walked back toward the elevators without looking at anyone. I watched him go, then turned back to my screen, because the renewal was still moving. The term sheets still needed signatures. The service credits still needed clean language. The world didn't pause for anyone's ego. At 2:06, an email hit my inbox from the VP above Grant. Subject: quick alignment to lines. Kayla, good work today. Effective immediately, you will be the renewal lead and primary client interface. We'll discuss comp adjustment this week. No exclamation marks. No apology. Just a quiet reallocation of power. I forwarded it to myself, flagged it, and went back to work, because that's the punchline. Nobody talks about, I didn't win because I argued better, I won because I built the structure everyone else relied on while Grant was busy auditioning for approval. If you enjoy watching train wrecks in slow motion, or stories about people getting exactly what they deserve without anyone throwing a punch, take a second to hit like and subscribe, because there are a lot of Grants out there, and corporate buildings are full of doors, some of them open, some of them don't. Okay, I closed my laptop and the HVAC kept humming like it had never witnessed a thing. They weren't asking because they were confused. They were asking because they wanted to know who mattered. A T618. Grant's response hit my screen. Subject: Ray. Global Renewal Sync Final. All Grant Halverson here. I'll be leading today's call. Looking forward to alignment. No attachment. No agenda edits. Just a title and a smile, typed in Outlook. He CC'd half the building like a man announcing a pregnancy. I stared at it for a moment, then sipped my coffee. Grant didn't understand that the people on that invite didn't care who wanted to lead. They cared who could answer when it got uncomfortable. A T703. Legal pinged me. Are we comfortable with Grant being primary? He's not briefed on the carve-out. I didn't respond. A T709. HR pinged me. Just checking in, everything okay after yesterday? I didn't respond. A T714. My phone buzzed. Grant. I let it ring out. A T716. Another call. Grant again. A T719. A third. Then a text. Where are you? Need you here early. And please keep it neutral today. Neutral. There it was again. Like my voice was a compliance risk. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel wounded. I felt interested because I knew what was coming. Global calls don't punish cruelty, they punish incompetence. By 8:30, the floor was louder than usual. That sharp, nervous energy people get when they're adjacent to something expensive and fragile. Someone whispered, Frankfurt Council is actually joining. Another said, procurement brought their boss. Someone else joked about time zones like it wasn't the reason we were all about to be awake for a very long day. Grant walked into the conference room like he was about to host a game show. New tie, new grin. That Emba confidence that comes from never being the one who has to explain the numbers when they go sideways. He clapped his hands once. All right, team, he said. Let's make this smooth. We don't need to overcomplicate it. Overcomplicate it, he meant. Don't embarrass me. He glanced at me and lowered his voice. Like we were sharing a secret, remember, he said. Slow, clear, American, he said. American, the way some people say clean. I looked at him. Really looked at him. He thought he was the gatekeeper. He didn't know the gate was on the other side of the ocean. 9:00 sharp. The bridge line opened. That little beep in the speakerphone sounded like a starting pistol. Names began to appear on the screen as squares and initials and expensive. Silence. London on. Frankfurt. Joined. Sao Paulo here. Singapore. Online. You could hear the accents like a choir. Crisp British. Clipped German. Portuguese rhythm. Singaporean English so precise it could cut glass. Grant cleared his throat and leaned into the mic like it was a microphone at a wedding. Good morning, everyone, he said, bright, overconfident. This is Grant Halverson. I lead. He paused, because nobody reacted. No laughter. No warm chatter. No, great to meet you, Grant, just the polite, professional void of people who were not there for his personality. Grant smiled harder, like it was a muscle he could flex into respect. We're here to align on the renewal, he continued. It's a straightforward extension. We're excited. We'll keep it high level to avoid confusion. Confusion, he said it like he was doing them a favor. From London, a voice came through, female, calm, razor sharp. Before we proceed, can we confirm who is presenting and who will handle Q&A? Grant blinked. A yes, he said quickly. I'm leading today. My team is here to support. Silence. Then Frankfurt's counsel spoke. Male voice. Slow. Deliberate, Mr. Halverson. The pre-read indicates a key man clause. We would like to address that immediately. Who drafted this language and who has authority to bind the operational commitments? Grant's eyes flicked to me for half a second, a microsecond of panic. Then he did what insecure leaders do when confronted with specifics. He tried to simplify his way out. Sure, he said, chuckling softly. So, key man is basically just standard. Nothing to worry about. Our people are great. Frankfurt didn't laugh. London didn't laugh. Singapore didn't laugh. Sao Paulo didn't even breathe. Grant went on. We're a global company, he said, gesturing with his hands even though they couldn't see him. We have depth. So no single person is, a key man. It's more of a formality. Formality. That word made legal in our room shift in their chair like they'd just been slapped, because it wasn't a formality. It was a trigger, and Grant had just described it like a joke. From Singapore, the APAC director spoke, voice cool and polite in the way that signals you're about to be dismantled, with respect. Our experience is that these clauses are included for a reason. We need to understand the continuity plan. The pre-read lists Kayla as primary contact for Q&A. Grant's head snapped slightly in my direction. He smiled. Tight. Yes, he said, too fast. Kayla is here. She supports the workstream. Supports, like I was a lamp. London's procurement lead spoke again. Excellent, she said. Kayla, can you answer directly? If you were not on this account, would the service credits and escalation protocol remain as written? I didn't lean forward. I didn't look surprised. I didn't glance at Grant for permission. I simply picked up the mic. Thank you, I said. Calm, clear, not slower, not flatter, just precise. The credits remain as written only if the renewal governance stays intact. Specifically, the escalation protocol in Appendix C is tied to named decision pathways. If those change, your risk profile changes. Grant's face tightened. He tried to cut in, right, but Frankfurt's counsel interrupted him without apology. Thank you, Kayla, he said. And the way he said my name wasn't friendly. It was respectful. It was acknowledgement. It was a stamp. Then London spoke, almost amused. Kayla, we have a concern about the 24-hour response law in EMEA. Your pre-read notes an exception for regulatory investigations. Can you clarify the exact threshold? I answered, cleanly, with citations, with the exact language our outside counsel had vetted. Grant sat back, eyes darting, searching for a place to reinsert himself. He didn't find one, because every time he opened his mouth, the room moved around him like water around a rock. Sao Paulo asked about pricing corridors. I answered. Singapore asked about implementation sequencing. I answered. Frankfurt asked about indemnity carve-outs. I answered. Grant tried twice to summarize my answers and got corrected both times, not rudely, worse, politely. Thank you, Grant, London said once. We'll defer to Kayla for specifics. Double quotes defer. It sounded like a compliment. It was a demotion in a single syllable. Grant's hands started tapping the table. His knee bounced under the desk. His smile became something he wore to hide the fact that he was bleeding in public, and then the moment he couldn't recover from arrived. Frankfurt counsel spoke again. We have one more question, he said. The key man clause. Who is the key person? Grant forced a laugh. Oh, come on, he said. It's not like one person. London cut him off. Grant, she said, still calm, it literally is. That is what it is. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just waited. The room waited too. Grant looked around as if someone in our conference room could rescue him from people on another continent. Then Singapore spoke. And it was gentle in the way a door closing is gentle. Kayla, the director said, we are comfortable proceeding with you as lead for this renewal. Please keep the agenda as distributed and send the follow-up actions directly after. There was a pause, then London added, agreed, Frankfurt agreed, Sao Paulo agreed, 4 regions in unison. not debating my accent, endorsing my authority. Grant stared at the speakerphone like it had betrayed him. I clicked my pen once. Understood, I said. I'll send the follow-up within the hour. Grant opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Because there was nothing left to perform, the call ended the way it began, with a beep. But when the line went dead, the room in front of me was different. Grant was still sitting there in his expensive chair. Revenge with Kayla, floor 37 smelled like lemon cleaner and expensive. Panic, the HVAC breathed recycled air like it was hiding a secret. I was the voice on the line that kept 7 countries moving in the same direction. 15 years of translating chaos into clean decisions. Today's global call wasn't a meeting. It was a final checkpoint before a 9-figure renewal and a key man clause nobody wanted to trigger. My agenda was the map, my notes were the fuse. Then my manager leaned back, smiled, and said, "Can you say that again? Slower, with less." Whatever that accent is. The room laughed like it was safe. I didn't laugh. He said it like he was asking for a refill, not like he was stripping me down in front of the room. There were 12 people at that table, and every single one of them understood exactly what just happened. The analysts with their laptops open, the director from legal who lived inside red lines, the HR business partner who always talked about psychological safety like it was a quarterly ochre, even the intern who had been told on day one to laugh at the right jokes. They all did the same thing corporate America trains you to do when power makes a mess. They smiled. One of the junior managers let out a little chuckle, quick and obedient, like a dog hearing its name. Someone else looked down at their notes with sudden devotion, as if the words on the page might save them. 2 people didn't move at all, frozen, eyes flicking between my face and his, calculating which way the wind was blowing. My manager's name was Grant Halverson, mid-40s, blue suit that had never known an actual hard day, teeth to white, confidence to loud. He had been promoted 3 months ago and acted like the building belonged to him now. Grant leaned back in his chair, lacing his fingers over his stomach, and he smiled at me the way men smile when they think they're being charming. "Come on," he said, still smiling, still performing. "It's just hard sometimes. You know, for our global partners. Maybe you can flatten it out, flatten it out." Like my voice was a wrinkled shirt, I glanced at the screen mounted on the wall. The agenda was still up there in crisp bullet points. My bullet points, my timeline, the call and numbers for London, São Paulo, Singapore. The renewal packet sat in a leather folder in front of me with a tab labeled Key Man, because someone had decided long ago that if the wrong person disappeared, the deal disappeared too. And Grant was playing open mic night. He turned his head slightly toward the room, inviting them in. "You know what I mean," he said. "Like, say it the American way." There it was, not a mistake, not a slip, a choice. The conference room air felt thinner. The hum of the lights got louder. Somewhere behind the glass walls, the city traffic moved like nothing in the world had changed. Grant leaned forward, elbows on the table, and repeated it, slower this time, as if he was teaching a child. "Can you say that again? Slower, with less." Whatever that accent is, he laughed at the end. Not a real laugh, a punctuation mark. The room followed, soft laughter, polite laughter, the kind of laughter that says, "I am not the target, please don't make me the target." I watched the HR partner's eyes flicker. She opened her mouth like she might say something, then she didn't. She swallowed it. She chose the path of least resistance, the path paved by every handbook relic and every will circle back she'd ever used to avoid a real fight. Legal did what legal does. They stared at their screen and pretended they were not in the room, because if they acknowledged it, it became a thing. And if it became a thing, it created risk. And corporate America loves diversity until it threatens the timeline. Grant's assistant, sitting 2 seats down, made a face that almost looked like sympathy. Almost. Then she adjusted her pen and kept smiling. Because sympathy without action is just decoration. I could feel the heat rising in my throat. Not anger the way people expect. Not the cinematic explosion. It was that old, familiar burn, the one that comes from realizing you are being evaluated on something you can't fix without erasing yourself. I've had my accent my whole life. It's not a costume. It's not an accessory. It's the sound of my mother on late-night phone calls. It's the sound of a childhood spent translating for adults who pretended not to understand. And now, in a room full of paid professionals, a man with a title thought he could turn it into a joke and call it leadership. Grant tapped the table twice. Like he was impatient. We're running a tight schedule, he said. We can't afford miscommunication. This deal is too big for confusion. Double quotes confusion.as. If my voice was the variable, not his ego, he looked around the table again, checking for allies, and the room gave them to him. Small nods, micro expressions, the usual cowardly currency. No one defended me, because defending me would mean disagreeing with him, and disagreeing with him would mean risking something they weren't willing to risk, not for my dignity, not for the basic human decency they pretended was a corporate value. I lifted my eyes to him, calm, flat, professional. He wanted me to flinch, to apologize, to shrink, to make it easier for everyone to pretend this wasn't what it was. I gave him nothing. Sure, I said softly. Grant's smile widened, satisfied, like he just won something he didn't realize he had only announced out loud to a room full of witnesses that he couldn't tell the difference between competence and comfort, and that's a very expensive mistake to make when your entire job is managing a global call. I picked up my pen. I didn't correct him. I wrote it down. The funny part is, Grant thought he just managed the room. He thought he'd established dominance with a joke and a smile. That's how people like him operate. They don't swing a fist. They swing a tone. They make you feel small, then call it culture. So I did what corporate survivors do. I went still. I nodded once, like I just received feedback on font size. Got it, I said. Grant's shoulders relaxed. He loved compliance. He loved it the way toddlers love light switches. Flip it. Watch what happens. Feel powerful. The meeting moved on. Slides clicked forward. Numbers appeared. Risks were noted. Action items were captured. And I watched him fumble in real time because Grant was comfortable in American rooms. He was fluent in domestic politics. He knew how to throw a joke at someone lower on the org chart and let the laughter do the dirty work. But international stakeholders, different animal. On a global call, people don't care how charming you are. They care if you are precise. Grant didn't know that yet. He kept inserting himself into my prep like a child grabbing the steering wheel. Let's keep it simple, he said, waving a hand at the renewal packet. They don't need all this nuance. Nuance, that word is where billion-dollar deals go to die. I glanced down at the leather folder in front of me. Inside were the clean documents, the term sheet, the pricing appendix, the key man clause highlighted in yellow by outside counsel with the kind of fear that costs $900 an hour. Grant had never read a key man clause in his life. He had skimmed enough to sound confident in meetings and left the real understanding to people like me, people with accents. I didn't correct him. I didn't educate him. I didn't defend myself to a room that had already decided silence was safer than decency. I simply began doing what I always do before a global call. I built structure. Back at my desk, I opened the calendar invite for tomorrow's call. The subject line was bland on purpose. Global Renewal Sync Final. Inside, it was a war room, dial-in codes for regions. A bridge line with a passcode that rotated every hour. A distribution list that didn't just include our internal team, but the people who actually mattered. The client's procurement lead in London, the compliance head in Frankfurt, the regional director in Singapore, and the CFO's chief of staff in São Paulo who ran interference like a professional sport. I owned that invite. not because I was power hungry, because I was the only person in our building who understood that global doesn't mean English with confidence, it means listening, it means clarity, it means respecting the room. I clicked into the agenda doc and made one small change, a single line, a simple, polite line that would read like best practice to anyone with experience and like a trap to anyone who didn't. Presenter, Kayla, primary point of contact for Q&A. Then I added the pre-read attachment again. The same deck, the same renewal narrative, the same risk language legal insisted on, the same appendix Grant had just called too much, and I scheduled it to send automatically at 6 o'clock a.m. because people in Frankfurt don't wake up for your ego. They wake up for preparation. My inbox chimed while I worked. A message from Grant, subject, for tomorrow, keep it short, and try to sound, more neutral, like my identity was a compliance issue. I stared at the message long enough to feel the old instinct rise, the one that wants to reply, to explain, to plead for basic respect. Then that strange cold clarity settled in. Grant didn't want neutral, he wanted control, and the thing about global calls is, control doesn't belong to the loudest person in the room. It belongs to whoever holds the agenda, the pre-read, the bridge, and the follow-up. I saved the invite, I closed my laptop. The call was already on the calendar, the morning of the global call. My inbox woke up before I did. 6:02 a.m., a reply from Frankfurt. Thank you for the pre-read. Noted on the key man language. We will have counsel present. 6:07 a.m. London. Appreciate the clarity. Can we prioritize the service credits section? We're seeing sensitivity. 6:11 a.m. Singapore. We will join with APAC leadership. Please confirm presenter for Q&A.